Lance Feurtado. When 50 Cent spit the line, "I'm forgetting Lefty and Jazz, Pretty Tony and Lance, Head Lou, Mel's Son, Troy and E Moneybags," he was calling out a dynasty straight out of South Jamaica, Queens. Lance Feurtado, along with his brothers Todd and Anthony, were street legends, often spoken of like royalty, the so-called King of Kings.
All of those people are kings in their own right. We just happen to be the king of kings.
The Feurtado story really began in Harlem, but their legend took shape when the family moved to South Jamaica in the early 60s. They grew up on Liberty Avenue and Wyck Expressway, and life wasn't easy. Their family background was a mix of law enforcement on their dad's side and educators on their mom's, but that didn't stop the streets from pulling them in. By the time they were 11, 12, and 13, they were already hustling marijuana, reefer back then, just to help their single mother make ends meet. From there, things escalated. They linked up with the Seven Crowns, a Queens gang that started off as the Saigons before the name switched up. At its peak in the mid-70s, that crew had anywhere between 1,000 and 1,500 members.
That y'all joined one of the biggest gangs in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You graduate, it's no longer the Saigons.
Right.
What's the name of the gang?
Well, the name changed while we was in Westbury.
What separated the Feurtados, though, was their rep. They weren't just hustlers. They had that Robin Hood image, taking care of their people and even saving lives when needed. They eventually leveled up from weed to running a major heroin empire, and they always made it clear they never touched crack. Their indictment later accused them of moving 3,000 kilos of coke and 200 kilos of every 6 months, stacking around $50 million during that run. Some say it was even crazier, like 15 to 30 million a week. They operated across multiple states, always independent, never working for anyone or taking product on consignment. And their secret to surviving so long was something they called getting ghosts. Whenever law enforcement heat got too heavy, they'd shut everything down and vanish for a year or two. That discipline gave them over 25 years in the game, which is unheard of. They kept their money smart too. 17 pieces of real estate, millions in assets, but you'd rarely catch them flaunting. They'd roll in regular rides like Boxerville or Chrysler Laser, saving the Benzes and Porsches for when it mattered. And every Thanksgiving, they'd hand out thousands of turkeys to the community.
Once upon a time, we was millionaires. Yeah. Once upon a time, we owned 17 pieces of prime real estate, commercial and residential. We did whatever we wanted to, whenever we wanted to.
They had close ties with Fat Cat Nichols and Supreme McGriff, even calling them family. They bragged that in South Carolina, they had every top cop in Charleston County on payroll. But by 1995, the feds came down hard with a 35 sweep, which snatched up 32 people across 9 states. What got them caught wasn't the cops, but snitches, including one from inside the family. Facing life sentences, they cut deals. Lance did about 15.5 years, Tony did 18.5, and Todd got just over 8. Prison changed them. They came out as born-again Christians and put their energy into building something positive. Together, they launched the King of Kings Foundation, dedicating to teaching the youth about the dangers of drugs, gangs, and street life. Their story was even turned into a documentary called King of Kings, and Lance kept it real. If the feds hadn't stopped them, he probably would have been out there still running things. Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols. When 50 rapped, "I used to idolize Cat," hurt me in my heart to hear the dude snitched on Pap. How he go out like that? He was shining a light on one of the most infamous names to ever come out of Queens, Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols. Fat Cat was born on Christmas Day 1958 down in Birmingham, Alabama, but his legend took root in Queens. He got his nickname from his thick linebacker neck and scruffy beard, and by the 1980s, he was one of the most feared drug lords in New York. His empire, built on coke and heroin, centered around 150th Street, the block, where he made an estimated $20 million a year. His office wasn't in some fancy building either, it was in the back of Big Mac's Deli. From there, he gave orders, whether it was moving product or green-lighting someone who crossed him.
There were several major organizations selling in Southeast Queens, and one of them was Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols' organization.
His start came earlier, though. After a 2.5-year prison bid for robberies with stuck-up kid Eddie Gardner, he came home in 1980 ready to make a move. His mentor was Pretty Tony Feurtado, who schooled him on the game and connected him to offshore suppliers. Fat Cat went straight to wholesaling, $50,000 a kilo for coke, and stacked millions fast. Family was also deep in his operation. His mom, Louise Coleman, was all in, even telling him once about a crackhead, if he don't get the F out of here, give him 2 in the head. His sister Viola, though, was the weak link. She was strung out on crack, working with his partner Pappy Mason, and later flipped to become a government informant. Fat Cat wasn't just a dealer. He was a boss who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He admitted to ordering the murders of Isaac Bolden, a childhood friend who'd fallen off, and his girlfriend, Myrtle Maisha Horsham, the mother of his son, after she skimmed money. And he's still believed to have been behind the 1985 hit on his parole officer, Brian Rooney. But the move that changed everything was one he didn't make. In 1988, when Pappy Mason ordered the murder of rookie NYPD officer Edward Byrne, it put heat on the whole South Jamaica scene like never before. Fat Cat himself called it the stupidest ish in the world.
Right after the murder of Officer Byrne, the New York City Police Department started cracking down on all the drug dealers. A tremendous amount of heat was put on all the drug dealers in Jamaica, Queens. They wanted the murders of Officer Byrne.
The sources say that the murder, in fact, angered Nichols because he believes that was the event that brought down the full weight of both the state and federal governments on his organization, his family, and ultimately himself.
And he wasn't lying. After Byrd's killing, the feds locked in on his organization. On August 11, 1988, Operation Horse Collar went down, taking in 37 of his people, including his mom, girlfriend, and nieces. Backed into a corner and with his mother staring at a 20-year bid, Fat Cat flipped. In September '89, he signed a plea deal and agreed to testify, even giving up knowledge of murders. From that day forward, he wasn't just Fat Cat, he was the cat that became a canary. He did over 34 years, most of it in harsh federal prisons, even ADX Florence. In 2023, he finally walked free, but the streets never forgot how his story ended. Howard Pappy Mason. 50's line go against crews like Bebo and killers like Pappy Mason was an exaggeration. Pappy Mason was one of the most feared names to ever come out of New York's drug wars. Pappy was a Brooklyn-born brawler, a natural fighter who made his way into Queens and became a top soldier for Fat Cat. But while Fat Cat was all about strategy, Pappy was about brute force. He rocked dreadlocks, gold teeth, and had that wild aura that made people either respect him or run from him. He was loyal to Fat Cat, so loyal that once when cops grabbed Cat in 1985, Pappy pulled a gun on an officer, ready to shoot right there in the street. Cat had to calm him down. That's the kind of soldier he was, reckless but dangerous. Eventually, Pappy formed his own crew, the Bebos, and they ran like wild dogs across Queens. The move that sealed his infamy came in February 1988. From a jail cell, Pappy allegedly ordered the hit on rookie cop Edward Byrne. Byrne was guarding a witness when 4 Bebos ran up and shot him 5 times in the head as he sat in his patrol car.
The Queens grand jury is going to convene tomorrow to consider the case against 4 young men accused of executing rookie cop Edward Byrne. He was gunned down while guarding a witness in a drug case.
The whole city lost it. The murder made national news, and politicians used it as a rallying cry in the war on drugs. Even Fat Cat was pissed, saying Pappy had ruined business for everybody. But Pappy didn't care. He wanted to show the cops he ran things.
The sources who are familiar with the case say Mason thought murdering a New York City cop would please his friend Nichols. The sources say that the murder, in fact, angered Nichols because he believes that was the event that brought down the full weight of both the state and federal governments on his organization, his family, and ultimately himself.
The shooters, Philip Copeland, Todd Scott, Scott Cobb, and David McClary, were all caught, and Cobb even confessed on tape that Pappy gave the order. His own sister, Viola Nichols, testified against him, translating his coded jail calls. By 1989, he was convicted, and in 1994, he was officially sentenced to life for drug racketeering and the Byrne murder. His mom, Claudia Miss Bebo Mason, even caught a 10-year sentence. Even locked up, Pappy stayed defiant. In court, he'd scream at judges, call himself the mayor of Brooklyn, and refuse to show up for trial. They had to install closed-circuit TV just to keep proceedings going. Till today, his name still resonates in hip-hop. Nas name dropped him, and of course, 50 did too. Pappy became one of those names that symbolized the wild, bloody side of the crack era. He's still serving life, a shadow of the chaos he once brought to the city. Alpo Martinez. When 50 said the twins was from Queens but got crazy cream with Alpo, he was talking about a Harlem hustler whose story is one of the most famous and infamous of them all. Albert Alpo Martinez. Born in 1966 in East Harlem, Alpo grew up in the East River Projects. By 15, he was running errands in the drug game, and by the early 80s, he was already making noise. Light-skinned with a slick style, he knew how to play the part. He started out robbing Dominican and Colombian dealers, pretending to be a small buyer, then sending his crew in to snatch the whole stash. Not long after, he moved up to He linked with hustler AZ Faison and Rich Porter, and together they became Harlem's young kings. They weren't just about the money. They were about flash, mink coats, jewelry, and custom Dapper Dan fits. Alpo especially loved the spotlight, doing wheelies on his dirt bike in Harlem streets and clowning cops for attention.
Alpo liked good things, nice things, but wow, get a motorcycle, buy a brand new bike where the crowd is at, do wheelies, crash it, and the next day go buy another motorcycle, thousands of dollars, 10,000, and just come uptown and light it up. But he liked it, that attention. And in the game, we don't need that. So I was always, this crazy.
But beneath the flash was a ruthless streak. He'd intimidate smaller dealers, clown washed-up hustlers, and had no issue putting hands or bullets on anyone who got in his way. When crack hit Harlem hard in the mid-80s, Alpo's ambition exploded. By 1988, he pushed into D.C., linking with big names like Kurt Bone and Big Gary, but his most dangerous ally was Wayne Perry, the Michael Jordan of murder. Perry became his enforcer, and together they ruled D.C. through money and fear. Alpo's most infamous move, though, was personal. In 1990, after finding out Rich Porter was overcharging him for and despite knowing Rich's little brother had just been Alpo set him up. He shot Rich twice in the head and dumped his body in the Bronx. That betrayal made his name legendary and hated.
I was asking him like, yo, Rich, where did you get that coat from, man? That good, because I wanted to make him comfortable. That was good as a He's like, I got it from my connect. From there, I knew he was lying. I turned to my little man. I gave him the nod. Once I gave him the nod, my little man spent, because he was short so he could stand up in the van. Next thing you heard was the 2 gunshots, bang, bang.
By 91, the feds had him cornered. He was facing RICO charges and the death penalty for 14 murders. Instead of taking it on the chin, Alpo cut a deal. In 93, he became a federal witness, flipping on Wayne Perry and others. His testimony buried Perry and earned Alpo the ultimate label in street culture, Rat. He served 25 years in ADX Florence, the toughest prison in America, before walking out in 2015 under witness protection. They relocated him to Maine, but Alpo being Alpo, he couldn't stay low-key. By 2017, he was back in Harlem, riding around in flashy trucks, brushing off the snitch label. But that boldness caught up to him on Halloween 2021. He was gunned down in Harlem, shot 5 times while driving his Dodge Ram. The same streets he once ruled became the place where it all ended. Eric E. Moneybags Smith. When 50 shouted him out in Ghetto Qu'ran, it was respect. E. Moneybags was one of those dudes who had a foot in both worlds, the streets and the rap game. Born in Brooklyn's Summer Projects, he came up in the same circles as future icons. He even went to Westinghouse High with Biggie and Jay-Z, and he stayed tight with Biggie in particular. But he wasn't just about rapping. His name told you who he was. E. Moneybags came from his obsession with stacking paper by any means. Stick-ups, drug dealing, extortion, even murder. He built his rap as someone you didn't cross. Early on, he rolled with the Young Guns or Alive Squad, a crew knee-deep in beef with the Lost Boys. That rivalry turned deadly on Christmas Eve 1991. During a showing of The Godfather 3 in Valley Stream, shots rang out in the theater. A 15-year-old Lost Boys member named Tremaine Hall was killed, and E-Money's name got tied to it. The fallout was so crazy the theater ended up putting metal detectors at the doors afterward.
There has been an arrest in the Godfather 3 theater shootout.
Shootings left 3 people wounded and a 15-year-old boy dead. He was allegedly involved in the Christmas Day gunfight between 2 gangs at the Sunrise Cinema on Long Island.
He later moved to LaFrac City in Queens, where he got even closer to the rap world. He bonded with Tupac in the early 90s, visited him in prison, and even told Pac that Jimmy Henchman was behind the Quad Studio shooting. He was cool with 50 Cent, Nore, Nas, Cormega, and especially Prodigy, who stuck with him heavy near the end. Bags himself wanted to rap too. He called it a stick-up without a gun. He'd play muscle on tours helping Pac and Biggie, even taking a trip with Pac to Atlanta just to buy guns for the hood. But like a lot of street legends, his downfall came from a beef. In 1999, Bags bought a hot car through one of Supreme McGriff's connects. When he tried to return it and Supreme hit him with a no refunds rule, E-Money felt played. Not long after, he saw Supreme riding with his lieutenant Colbert Black Just Johnson. Bags sprayed the car, missed Supreme but killed Black Just with a shot to the thigh.
He said, "Them, that wasn't for Just." Just like that. He said that wasn't for Just. I just looked at him, man, and I say, "E, that is Just. He's dead."
That was a line you couldn't uncross. Supreme was furious, threw $50K on E-Money's head, and swore Black Just would be avenged. Bags knew what was coming, so he moved different, stayed paranoid, even had run-ins with Jay-Z around that time. And a fortune teller had allegedly warned E-Money Bags that his rap career was futile, as he wouldn't live long enough to succeed, predicting a tragic death. She wasn't lying. On July 16, 2001, while chilling at a barbecue in Queens, E-Money Bags sat in his Lincoln Navigator to smoke. 4 masked gunmen rolled up and unleashed more than 40 shots into the truck. Bags got hit over 10 times, gun still in his hand, never even firing back. Word is, one shooter even taped the whole thing and sent it to Supreme, who bragged, "Now Black Just can finally rest in peace." His death didn't just silence a voice in rap, it lit the fuse for more violence, putting an even bigger target on his brother, Big Nose Troy. Bags left behind a legend that was equal parts music, muscle, and menace. Kenneth Supreme McGriff. When 50 spit, see dudes feared Prince and respected Preem. For all you slow mother effers, I'ma break it down iller. See, Preem was the businessman and Prince was the killer. He was talking about one of Queens' most powerful figures, Kenneth Supreme McGriff. Born in 1959 and raised in South Jamaica, Queens, Supreme came up as part of the 5% Nation, which is how he got his righteous name. In 1981, he put that name on his own empire, the Supreme Team. Based in the Baisley Park projects, the crew grew into one of the biggest crack outfits New York had ever seen. At its peak in the late 80s, they were pulling in $200,000 a day. Supreme ran it like a corporation, with lookouts, radios, and security tighter than most Fortune 500 companies. But he wasn't just a drug kingpin. To the hood, he was Robin Hood. He threw block parties, funded basketball tournaments, sent kids to amusement parks, and handed out money like candy. If you grew up in Baisley, Preem made sure you ate. The law, of course, was always on him. He caught his first narcotics case in '85, and by '87, he was back in prison for running a continuing criminal enterprise. While he was locked up, his nephew Gerald Prince Miller held things down, adding even more violence to the team's rep. Supreme came home in '95 and tried to go legit, opening a barbershop and diving into movies. With Irv Gotti, he even produced Crime Partners, a street flick starring Ja Rule, Snoop, and Ice-T. But the streets don't let go easy. Supreme stayed tied in with Murder Inc., offering protection and presence, and he found himself in the middle of rap beefs, especially Ja Rule versus 50 Cent. When 50 dropped Ghetto Qu'ran and spoke Preem's name directly, it crossed into dangerous territory. Soon after, Daryl Homo Baum allegedly shot 50 9 times in May 2000, a hit tied to a $50K contract from Supreme. 50 lived, but the story only grew.
My issue is with Preem. You see what I'm saying? He's from my neighborhood. He understands the difference. So he'll look at it and go, he's gonna do something. You don't have to address a rapper with killing him, with shooting him, you know what I'm saying, 9 times.
Meanwhile, Supreme was dealing with his own war. In December '99, E-Money Bags just killed Black Just, Supreme's right-hand man. Supreme never let that go. Bags was gunned down in 2001, and months later, his brother Troy met the same fate. Supreme allegedly orchestrated both murders and even bragged afterward that Black Just's death had been avenged. By the mid-2000s, the feds had stacked cases on him. In 2007, he was convicted of drug racketeering and 2 murder-for-hire homicides. He got life without parole and has been rotating through federal supermaxes ever since. His legend is so big, people still say he helped inspire Nino Brown in New Jack City. James Corley Corley. When 50 said, "I know some cats that held down whole complexes like Corley Wall," he was saluting a ghost in the game, literally. James Corley Corley was one of those South Jamaica figures you rarely saw, but always heard about. He came up in the 40s projects where his family held weight like royalty. Corley himself played landlord of the blocks, running things through discipline and silence instead of flash. He was tied to the Seven Crowns gang in his early years, a crew full of serious Queens movers. Over time, he built a network so slick, the cops called him the Ghost. Until Fat Cat or Preem, Corley avoided the spotlight. No flashy cars, no photos, just results. By the late 80s, his operation was making about $5 million a year. His workers made $15K a week, and he used up to 8 different phones to stay untouchable. Even his mom was in it. Sadie Corley earned the nickname Mama Crack, and his brothers Darnell and Irvin kept the family business alive. He wasn't clean, though. He did time for drugs and even caught a manslaughter charge after beating a suspected snitch to death. His name was also floating around when Officer Edward Byrne was killed in '88, a case that set off New York's all-out war on drugs. Corley never got the charge for that, but it shows the level he was operating on. For decades, he dodged the big kingpin charges, but in 2012, at 51 years old, the Ghost finally got caught. Operation Southside, a 15-month investigation, swept him up along with 45 others. Even NYPD Commissioner Ray Kelly had to admit Corley's ability to stay relevant. He went from 80s coke king to supplier for the Southside Bloods. His myth grew so large that people say the TV character Ghost from Power was inspired by him. Rich Porter. When 50 dropped Alpo's name in Ghetto Qu'ran, he was also pulling Rich Porter's ghost into the conversation. You can't talk about Alpo without talking about Rich, because their story ended in one of the dirtiest betrayals Harlem ever saw. Rich Porter was Harlem Fly before Harlem Fly had a name. He was the guy with the mink coats, custom cars, and Dapper Dan fits that rappers copied. Even LL Cool J admitted Rich influenced his whole style. If you saw Rich and his right-hand man LA riding dirt bikes around Harlem, doing wheelies with cops chasing them, it was like watching local celebrities. Rich made money at will, and more importantly, he spread it around. In the 80s, Rich and LA were moving heavy, then came coke. With connects like Richard Fred Simmons, who had ties to the Lucchese crime family, Rich's product seemed endless. Kids on the block wanted to be him, from his sneakers to his swagger. But Harlem's game is always dangerous. In '84, LA got killed outside the rooftop, and the shooters were really gunning for Rich. He survived an ambush later with a bulletproof vest, but still ended up doing a year on Rikers for a gun charge. The real heartbreak came in December '89. His 12-year-old brother, Donnell, was on his way to school. The ransom was $500,000, and the crew behind it was Clarence Preacher Headley's gang, with Rich's own uncle, John Apple Porter, playing a role. That betrayal shook Harlem to its core.
And then Rich Porter's 12-year-old little brother.
Yes, sir.
So it's just one horrible event after another.
And they wanted how much? Like $500,000 or something?
Yeah, that's what it was stated to have been.
And then to show that they were serious, they actually cut off his little brother's
the very
finger.
next day.
And then came Alpo. By 1990, Rich, AZ, and Alpo were running Harlem. But Alpo found out Rich was overcharging him for coke. At the same time, Rich was begging Alpo for help with Donnell's thing. Alpo didn't buy it. He decided Rich had to go. On January 3rd, 1990, Alpo lured Rich out, shot him twice in the head, and left him in the Bronx.
I was asking him, like, yo, Rich, where did you get that coat from, man? That good, because I wanted to make him comfortable. It was good as He's like, I got it from my connect. So from there, I knew he was lying. I turned to my little man. I gave him the nod. Once I gave him the nod, my little man spent, because he was short so he could stand up in the van. Next thing you heard was the 2 gunshots, bang, bang.
Donnell's body turned up in '91, chopped up and dumped in the Bronx as well. His own uncle Apple ended up being implicated. Harlem had lost 2 brothers in the foulest way possible. Rich's story, along with AZ and Alpo's, became the backbone of the film Paid in Full. Mekhi Phifer played him, and to this day, his name carries weight. In life, he was the hustler everyone wanted to be. In death, he became a warning about how quick the game can turn on you. Gerald Prince Miller. When 50 Cent said, "See, dudes feared Prince and respected Preem. For all you slow mother effers, I'ma break it down iller. See, Preem was the businessman and Prince was the killer," he wasn't exaggerating. Gerald Prince Miller was Supreme's nephew, his right-hand man, and the one everybody feared. If Preem was the brains, Prince was the muscle. Prince built his whole rep on being ruthless. Dude had a Mr. Untouchable vibe. He kept catching murder cases in the late 80s and somehow beating them. When Supreme went down in 85 and again in 87, Prince slid right into the driver's seat, running the Supreme team with iron fists. He beefed up security, made sure nobody crossed him, and if they did, well, bodies dropped. In 87 alone, him and Preem, even while locked up, greenlit at least 8 murders. He was known for rocking bulletproof vests and driving around in a custom bulletproof BMW, just daring someone to try him. He even came up with a 50 on 500 system. Basically, if you sold $500 worth of crack, you only got $50. The rest went to him. And if you thought about snitching, forget it. Witnesses either disappeared, flipped their story, or ended up dead. The darkest story tied to him was when a witness named Trent Morris testified against him. Morris's sister-in-law and her father were killed, and the first letter of Miller's nickname was carved into their bodies. That's the kind of fear his name carried. Eventually, the feds built a monster case with wiretaps, inside informants, and all kinds of evidence. By 1997, Prince was convicted on a 14-count indictment and handed 7 life sentences plus 20 years, no parole. His reign was officially over. Colbert Black Just Johnson. In Ghetto Qu'ran, 50 said, "Rumors in the hood was that Just was snitching. I didn't believe that, Pa. He helped me caught my first GSXR." That right there tells you who Black Just was. A mentor figure, someone 50 himself looked up to. Born in Harlem but raised in Queens, Black Just became a top lieutenant in the Supreme team. Brought in by Troy Babywise Jones, he climbed the ranks fast and earned Supreme's trust. He controlled the orange top file spots in Baisley, which were pulling in 20 to 30K every couple days. And it wasn't just about the money, he was loyal. When other members were locked up, he held them down with commissary and support. While Preem and Prince were away, Black Just and Bimmy Antony basically kept the whole operation afloat. At the same time, he was outside heavy in the hip-hop scene, Rooftop, Latin Quarter, The Tunnel. He was cool with Rich Porter, Demencio Benson, and rubbed shoulders with rappers nonstop. Stylish, flashy, driving Porsches, Land Rovers, switching cars like sneakers. He even ran a boxing gym where a young 50 Cent used to train. Instead of checking 50 for being bold, he respected him and helped the gym out.
One day I was hanging out at the gym, and a street dude named Black Just stopped by, accompanied by one of his boys. Blackie, as we called him, was one of the most respected dealers in Baisley, a top lieutenant for Supreme Team, the biggest drug crew in Queens at the time. Already their reputations were well known around the neighborhood. The kind of young guns you didn't want any problem with. The gym got quiet as we all watched Blackie and his boy walk around. As soon as the guy was finishing the bags, I called out to him, "Hey man, you look good hitting that bag." I said loud enough for everyone in the gym to hear, "But that bag don't hit back." Blackie whipped around. "What you say, young boy? You talking to me?" "Nah," I quickly replied. "I'm talking to him," I said, nodding towards his man. Most guys in that position would have whooped my ass.
For all his street ties, Black Just kept beating cases. He stayed solid, never snitched, always stood on principle. But in 1999, his luck ran out. Supreme had beef with E-Moneybags over a car deal gone bad. When E-Moneybags saw Supreme and Black Just in a Land Rover, he opened fire. Supreme escaped, but Black Just caught a bullet in the thigh. Instead of rushing him to the hospital himself, worried about another parole violation, Supreme passed the job to someone else. Black Just bled out before he got real help.
And he came to me, he said, "Bim, that wasn't for Just." Just like that. He said that wasn't for Just. And I just looked at him, man, and I say, "E, that is Just. He's dead."
That one bullet wasn't even meant for him, but his death broke Supreme, who swore revenge and later made sure E-Moneybags paid the price. Troy, Big Nose Troy Singleton. 50 shouted him out with, "I'm forgetting Lefty and Jazz, Pretty Tony and Lance, Head Lou, Mel's son, Troy, and E-Moneybags." That's Big Nose Troy, E-Moneybags' brother, and a Queens legend in his own right. Born in '68, Troy was fearless. He didn't care who you were, even if you were Supreme. He represented a new generation that didn't bow down to the old guard. He and E-Money were tight, partners in robberies, stick-ups, whatever brought cash in. He also had a softer side. He and Prodigy from Mobb Depp bonded heavy over both having sickle cell. Troy used to bring P food when he was laid up in the hospital, showing a loyalty that went beyond the streets. But when it came to beef, Troy was relentless. He never let anything slide. After a shootout at Baisley Pond Park's Peace Tournament in '95, where 2 people died, Troy felt set up by Supreme's people. From then on, it was open war. Him and E-Money were pistol whipping, running down, and straight disrespecting Supreme's crew at every turn. Troy even pressed Irv Gotti and Ja Rule's manager in broad daylight, putting hands on them outside Universal Records.
There's only 4 I know personally in Queens that wasn't scared of Preem. 50, E-Money Bags, Homo, and Big Nose Troy. Them terrorized the whole Queens.
By 2001, Supreme had enough. He dropped a $50K bounty on both brothers. E-Money got hit first in July. 3 months later, on October 28th, Troy got ambushed outside Club Van Wyck. 8 shots, no chance of survival. With both brothers gone, the war tilted heavily in Supreme's favor, but it also brought him under the Fed's radar for good. Troy left behind a son, Troy Jr., who's now making moves in rap, carrying the family name in a different way. Tyran Tah-Tah Moore. 50 slipped him in with the line, "Gamble all the time like country curly head Prince and Tah-Tah." But that simple bar doesn't capture how wild Tah-Tah's story really was. From 105th Street in Englewood, Tah-Tah wasn't the biggest guy, but he had the biggest heart and wasn't scared of anything. He caught his first murder charge in '88, but it got dismissed. In '93, another murder rap came his way, tied to a shooting at a gas station. He beat that too. He lived around guns, beef, and constant drama. The most infamous moment came in 2003 when cops came to question him about a shooting. Instead of going quietly, Tah-Tah turned it into a 2-hour standoff, holding his nephew, a friend, and her 6-year-old kid hostage. It ended without bloodshed, but the headlines made him a legend. He was also tied to Murder Inc. and was even suspected of having something to do with a hit on 50 Cent in 2000. 50 himself pointed fingers in his mixtapes, naming Tah-Tah alongside Preem and Freeze. 50, who shot you? You think it was Preem, Freeze, or Tah-Tah? On top of all that, Tah-Tah had a famous connection. He fathered a kid with Sandra Peppa Denton from Salt and Peppa. Tah-Tah lived fast and dangerous, so when he passed in 2022, reportedly not by violence but by overdose or natural causes, it shocked people. For someone so tied to gunplay, dying quietly felt almost unreal. Troy Babywise Jones. 50 gave him a nod with, "From Gerald Wallace to Babywise, don't be surprised of how I freely throw out games of guys who dealt with pies." Babywise wasn't just a name, he was part of the Supreme team's original core. He was loyal to Supreme, one of the first lieutenants, and the one who actually brought Black Just into the fold. He ran the red top vial spots, moving crazy product and pulling in 20 to 30K every other day. But what set him apart was how he carried himself. Babywise wasn't loud, wasn't flashy. He was smooth, low-key, and smart. No phone talk about business, no wild partying, no incriminating moves. He kept it sharp with the fashion and cars, but made sure his profile stayed low. People respected his intelligence, and when he did talk, people listened. That didn't mean he was soft. When Green-Eyed Born tried to play Supreme by stealing his jewelry, Babywise handled it personally, shot him in the leg as a lesson. That was Babywise all the way. Calm, smooth, but deadly when it was time. For all his years in the game, he managed to dodge the big cases. He did a little time here and there for drugs and guns, even beat a murder in North Carolina. But unlike most of his peers, Babywise survived the streets and the system. Today, he's free, living quietly and staying under the radar. Chaz Slim Williams. When 50 Cent dropped Ghetto Qu'ran, he made sure to mention Slim by name. And on Many Men, he even lamented losing him to an act of betrayal. That's because Chaz Slim Williams wasn't just another street legend. His path was wild, stretching from one of the most notorious bank robbers in American history to a respected manager in hip-hop. Born Charles Williams in Harlem in 1951, Slim moved with his family to the 40s projects in Queens when he was just 5 years old. Trips down south exposed him to Jim Crow segregation, shaping his early outlook. By 12, he had already hit his first lick, robbing a local drugstore at gunpoint. At 16, he was on to bigger scores. Banks. That set off a legendary run where he was allegedly tied to 63 bank robberies. To put that in perspective, Jesse James only hit 8 banks and John Dillinger 24. Slim's method was calculated. He only targeted federally insured banks, knowing the money was guaranteed.
Okay, so at 12 years old, you started actually robbing stores. Was it before then? I mean, did you just get caught at 12? Did you start a little earlier?
No, it was about then. You know, it was about that age. Yeah.
Like how many banks had you hit?
Over, you know, like I said, I started young, so that my count is, around 60 as they estimated.
His criminal life took him through juvie, Canadian prisons, and multiple U.S. bids. In 1973, while technically enrolled at the University of Michigan and on date passes from federal custody, Slim and his crew went on a 6-month spree, robbing banks across Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, and Indiana. His story was later featured on BET's American Gangster. By 1997, after a shootout with the FBI, he was finally caught and slapped with 95 years. But Slim was sharp. He acted as his own lawyer and got the sentence knocked down to 25 years. Behind bars, he didn't waste time. He earned 2 bachelor's degrees, one in business administration, the other in human service administration. He came home in 1991 after 15 years, and instead of fading away, Slim flipped his hustle. He launched Black Hand Entertainment, at first throwing Mike Tyson after parties, then shifting into hip-hop. He helped bring Snoop Dogg to New York for the first time, worked with Jay-Z, Foxy Brown, and even played a role in 50 Cent's early career. He also executive produced the Black Gangster soundtrack. In 2016, Slim sued BET, Netflix, and others for using his life story in American Gangster without his permission. But by then, his name was cemented. On July 13, 2019, Chaz Slim Williams passed away at his New York home, leaving behind a dual legacy. One of the most feared bank robbers of his time, and one of Queens' respected figures who never told. Tommy Montana Mickens. 50 summed up Montana perfectly in Ghetto Qu'ran. Montana was no dummy, brought business to wash the money, had money out the he politic like the Asians. Feds couldn't catch him dirty, so settled for tax evasion. That was Tommy Montana Mickens in a nutshell. Smart, flashy, and ahead of his time when it came to moving dirty money. By the late 80s, Montana had built himself up as a real drug whiz kid in Queens. His assets were jaw-dropping. Luxury cars stacked up, multiple properties, a yacht in California, and even rumors of a helicopter. But what separated him from a lot of other kingpins was his numbers game. He understood that all that drug money needed to look clean, so he funneled millions into legit businesses like Montana Dry Cleaners and Montana Sporting Goods. It was a textbook example of laundering done right, so clean the feds couldn't nail him directly on drugs. Instead, they had to pull the Al Capone move and hit him with tax evasion. His smarts may have run in the family. His father was known as a policy marker, basically an OG number runner back in the day. Still, Montana's run came to an end in 1988, when he was sentenced to 35 years. He wound up serving 20 and came home in 2008. What's wild is how he flipped the script after prison. Instead of diving back into the streets, Montana reinvented himself as a senior fitness coach and launched the Tommy Experience. From drug empire to health and wellness, it showed the same discipline and intelligence that made him a millionaire in the first place. Tony Feurtado. When 50 Cent shouted out Pretty Tony alongside Lance Feurtado and other names in Ghetto Qu'ran, it wasn't random. Tony Feurtado, better known as Pretty Tony, was one of those respected OGs in Queens whose influence reached deep into the underworld. Tony was a mentor to none other than Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols, one of NYC's biggest drug lords. That alone tells you how established he was. He came from the Feurtado family tree, the same clan as Lance and Todd, who ran a disciplined multi-million-dollar operation. But Tony's presence went beyond just hustling. He was half black and half Italian, a mix that gave him unique reach in New York's diverse criminal world. He could bridge different circles, whether black crews in Queens or Italian connections downtown. In the streets, he was considered part of that upper tier of black dealers that the Supreme Team eventually wanted to cut out by going straight to the Colombians. But no matter how much the game evolved, Tony's name carried weight. In the Feurtado documentary King of Kings, he's even called a legend in the hood. That says it all.
Pretty Tony makes you talk about legends in the hood.
Officially authentic niggas, in some form or fashion, they was under the hand Tony.
Pretty Tony wasn't loud or flashy about it. His power came from respect, mentorship, and longevity. His role as both a player in the Feurtado operation and a mentor to Fat Cat keeps his name stamped in Queens history. Fritz Curly-Head Prince Armand. 50 also dropped Fritz Curly-Head Prince Armand's name in Ghetto Qu'ran with the line, "Gamble all the time like country curly-head prince and Tah-Tah." And gambling really was his thing, but it was just one layer of who he was. Fritz, aka Prince or P.I. Armand, was originally from Northside Queens, but his reputation took root on the South Side in the 80s. He was known as a feared stick-up kid, someone who could get money through sheer nerve and pressure. On the gambling tip, though, he was on another level. Some say he could clear $100,000 in a single day when the dice and cards were rolling his way. At the same time, he tried to keep one foot in legit business. He was a skilled barber and even owned a barbershop on 134 Guy R. Brewer, giving him a cover and a hub in the community. Still, the law stayed on him heavy. Most of his adult life was spent in and out of prison, including an 8-year bid. While locked up, he sharpened his barbering craft, making sure he had a skill to carry him on the outside. Unlike many of his peers who never made it out, Fritz did. Today, he's free, a survivor of both the streets and the system.